Oh. Oh, right. So I wasn't added to this. Okay. So here is chapter one. This is going to be the sample chapter for my editor. What I'm thinking right now is this is probably going to be about novella length. I don't think it's going to hit 50,000 words, even though I did hit 50,000 words for NaNoWriMo. Other things got included in it. I'm writing this book. It's going to be sort of what we call a loss leader on indie publishing, which means when the Enduring series is publishing a little more aggressively, which means I'm going to write the other books, this is going to become a very inexpensive, like 99 cents, as a way to sort of draw people in. This might even just be a freebie giveaway for people. If they want the ebook for free, they can get it. If they want the paperback, they can get that for money, but that will also be super cheap as a way to engage readers. So this might not be a long process, but here I am in chapter one. This is the introductory chapter. We have had the ride. And what the ride does is sort of introduce the sense that the afterlife is not what you imagine, and it's sort of breaking. And it is what they are doing to orient you is nowhere near enough to orient you. Also, you as the reader, not just you as the dead person. But you also get a sense of Death's voice, who he is, that he feels that he is a human, not just, well, that he is a sentient being, not just the personification of death. But this chapter introduces us to his sort of apathy and depression that he's in, which is a little difficult. Oh, there's chapter two. Um, so it's only about a couple pages long, but chapter two will probably be sent with her. So the problem with this one is that we have a depressed character, and you're in this character's head, and also you're not technically in a physical space. You are not really blinking your eyes, you're not really touching things, you're not really breathing, your heart is not pounding, your anxiety is not, you are not feeling physical things. They are a manifestation of magic and sort of that phantom limb idea that you had these things, you did these things, your mind reacts in these ways like it did when you had a body for it to react with. But here we are now, it doesn't have any of that. So we have to make sure there's a balance. And I open up this chapter with sort of the death inner monologue, that his days blend together. He's on autopilot, as many depressed people can feel. Like, there's sometimes you can be depressed and you're just totally stuck. But then there's functioning depression, where you get up every day and you do the things you have to do, and there's nothing else that you can give people, and it's akin to a burnout. But also it is a functioning depression, and I think a lot of people feel this kind of depression. I know I did. But then there is a depression where, no, you're not doing anything. Also something I can feel. So I pulled a lot of this from my own experiences with depression more than other people's, because again, Death's not dealing with brain chemistry being off, because Death has no brain for there to be chemistry. So depression's going to look very specific for a being who really has no shape and form and can change his face at will. There's also Delta, the demon, who I keep thinking is looks like an albino. The whole species, there's only like 20 of them because of the nature of this demon. Thus, they have names that are Greek letters. They are servants within this universe. They've evolved over time. In one draft, they were just referred to by their first one letter, so we could have the whole alphabet. And I realized that's a hot mess. There's a lot of hot messes in that. Like I said to no, it's not going to work. So there's some work I want to do as I read through this, and that's what today's going to be. Unlike 2 weeks ago, where I was writing a lot because I was writing whole new content, and then last week where I was cleaning up something that was a little weird. and needed to just have a little bit of finesse. This I have to think about more than just edit. But we're going to be here till 8 o'clock doing this. And I'm going to do it in shorter sprints, just 10-minute sprints. And then I'll come back and talk about some decisions I made. And then we'll see where we go, because this is actually not as long as I thought it was. All right. So I'm going to mute myself, but you can watch, well, you'll watch on the camera as I look back and forth between my notes down here and the screen where everything is happening. All right, I didn't make very much progress because I cleaned up these two introductory paragraphs. Um, I took out the content about the eight pops and aches of a body because death doesn't have a body. Death has never had a body for there to even be this memory of. But comparing death to a computer was good. The thing that got me hung up and got me really searching online, which is what I was doing, and you couldn't see, is that I was looking for so this starts sort of in very late 1994, early 1995. So we're dealing with uh, very few PCs in the world, but a significant number of Macs, mostly because for anybody who's actually alive during the mid 90s and in school, Apple uh, made it very possible for a lot of schools to get computers in in the schools. This is how a lot of kids know Oregon Trail and Carmen Sandiego. You had a Mac in your classes, or you had a computer lab that had Macs. So people knew Macs surprisingly well, more than they knew PCs for a little while. Of course, PCs were far cheaper very quickly, but I in 94, 95 was using a Mac, so I was trying to remember what the actual interface looked like on a Mac, and it wasn't um a spinning colorful beach ball pinwheel that we see now. That came out with uh, OS 10, which was 2001. So everything, if you didn't interact with computers before 2001, everything you know is relatively new to some of us. Not in the sense of new, but some people remember a much crappier version of the Mac operating system. But I was trying to remember, was there pinwheel there? Was it actually the pinwheel? And Wikipedia seems to indicate that there was. It was just really shitty bit kind of looking um black and white. So I made the change, and then I expanded on the sense of what it would be like for a computer to have started up then. I mean, even as I'm doing this, I can hear the fan of the laptop I'm working on. The fan is like a constant memory. But there was also what felt like a very cranky, which is what I use, a cranky hard drive, which you don't hear so much anymore because especially the Macs don't have an active hard drive in the like for short term processing. They don't have that anymore. It's not that big clunky hard drive. It's this like little thing, and it's mostly you're mostly encouraged to store things on the cloud or on an external drive. It makes the computer skinnier and lighter. Ooh, excuse me. It makes it move faster. It makes it last longer in terms of how long the computer will be a usable computer before it starts slowing down and processing slower. But we would always have ticks that went with it and grinding that went with it. And it was just, oh, if it started slowing down or took forever to load up, you were just there for years waiting for something to happen. And if it was an older machine, you would never it felt like it never ended, just the loading up of things. And I really wanted to get that sense that within Death's lethargicness, his struggle to get up every day, there is this sense of a slowdown because there's nothing for him to focus on, nothing for him to care about. He's not the active administrator. And then we get into the demons. Um, and I took out a little bit about this introduction where is what would you like for breakfast this morning? Death doesn't eat. Death has never eaten, but that has to be a little more finessed. So I'm working on that, and that's what I'm going to get back to is working on that, and we will do another 10, 11 minutes. All right, it looks like I actually made some changes in this draft to the demons, which I'm very happy with. The idea that they are sort of a blank slate and their emotions are represented in various colors gives me a lot of wiggle room to play with in describing scenes in the future parts of the book. So I have to remember that I have done that, and of course there is no pen within arm's reach, so that will be fun. I will actually be going and making a note of this when I go and work on the sort of the character Bibles that I have in another space. But one critical detail about these demons is that uh, they are not what we would now consider to be non-binary. They are they, singular, they, them, theirs. But this is a decision I think I made in chapter 2. As I was going through this, I realized these demons don't just copulate and have children. There's a very small number of them. They have been there forever, but they will eventually change around. But they're not engaging in anything sexual that there would need to be two. Um, and maybe they don't even need that. Maybe it's sort of like cell division where they just make a copy of themselves. I haven't decided yet, though that is a very good idea now that I'm externally processing it. But because of that, I'm going to use they, them, their pronouns. And any instance where I have referred to Delta as a he or another one of them as a he or a she needs to be changed to they, them, their, which is really kind of exciting for me to have made that decision, but not right away. So that's a lot of what I was just working on. I think we're about to get into this sense of, and this is one of the things that my editor is being very specifically told to look for, and that is world building. And I think I talked about this last week and the week before. World building in fantasy can be, you don't want it to be an info dump. You don't want to welcome your reader to your book, to your world, and be like, here's all the information you need to know. You need to progressively give them more, especially when you're keeping something from them. And in this case, there's a lot I'm keeping from you. This is a long series. I can't tell you everything. One, because some of those decisions haven't been made, but two, some of those decisions will give away future events, and I don't want to do that too much. So this is why we have editors. My editor will have a sense of how the world building process is going. Am I dumping too much? Here in this first chapter, I don't want to dump and bore. I want to make sure people are staying engaged, which is why I'm not dwelling on the death depression content. I'm going to let that sort of permeate through the entire draft. Just at this point, we're recognizing it's very difficult for him to get going, but we're taking him right out of this, what do you mean I have to do something, to, oh, Christina, the current devil, needs to retire. But there's this hint here that Walter Northanger is, I remembered to pull it out this week. So in my book, and this is in the Austen series, in my book, Northanger Parks, which is getting retitled and new cover. But in that book, Northanger Parks is created by one of the magical families. And there are just a little bit of hints about some characters to this series in that one. So if you're not really a total fantasy fan, but you like a little of the romancy kind of books and you're a multi-genre reader, consider picking up Northanger Parks so that you can get a little bit of the history of the family, which is part of the world building, in the sense of I've done a little here, I've done a little there, so that when this all comes together, I can present you with a variety of ways to learn more. That aside. So Walter Northanger is the man, or Gilbert Northanger. I think I have to change that. Is it? Yeah, I have to change that. It's Walter, because at one point it was going to be Walt Disney. So I need to fix that. Make sure every Walter reference is now Gilbert. He created the parks, he created the company, and so now he is a human, so he is, and it's died, so now he is here, and he built the ride, the first chapter of the book, the ride that we were working on last week. But it is breaking, which because you read it last, this would be the first chapter, it's breaking. Death knows it's breaking. And he has gone to Christina, who runs this community. She is the acting manager. But she has made things worse. And that's critical to what is going to happen, that she is no longer fixing and building, but breaking and making things worse. And she knows it. Now, Death is clear. Now, the residents, even those who are a little more involved than others, are increasingly aware of it. So the first act is really about her decline, and Death needs to take action. So I think that I'm going to work on that next, and then we're going to wrap up for tonight, and I'll show you some of the other fun things that that are happening. I might have to turn off the camera at one point, but let's get a little bit started. Yeah, I'm going to get something started, and then I'm going to turn off my camera too. All right, so I made the quick change to make sure that that Walter Northinger is definitely now Gilbert Northinger. I mean, if you didn't realize that Northinger Parks was entirely based on Disney, now you officially can know that. Yes, I just made my own theme park from Disney. Um, and now I'm going to use it to my benefit. Why create a whole entire theme park if I'm not gonna use the whole thing? It's too much to waste on just one book. So I'm at a spot where I think I'm gonna take a break from this for the night. A couple things that are going on in the story, um, and this is where I might end up changing it again from that draft. I took a chunk out. Death is exceptionally polite when he is depressed. When he doesn't have emotion, he's just going to default to politeness. So um the but his siblings do not. They say fuck all the time. They don't care. Language is language. So that is why humanity or this the bodies we exist in were created was so the enduring can fuck. And they did not think that there would be babies, but of course Death has a very different perspective. He doesn't get to fuck, so he can see it from a distance, and he's like, yeah, I could see that coming a mile away, babies. So humanity is just appears. And then the dimension just sort of cycles them through. What are they being protected from? They don't remember. This has been going on for so long, they have no memory of it. So much to remember, and they have none. For what their decision making was in the beginning, mostly because I haven't decided yet, but I'm sure I will at some point in time. Um, and so I cleaned up some of this sense of why they had to onboard. I'm still a little torn in um, this sort of section of the narrative. I do want to start out with Gilbert saying something because I like things to be action focused. I'd like there to be a reason that you're going to get an info dump, and Gilbert Northinger is a good reason to give you an info dump, but I don't want it to be too bad. So I'm sort of torn. Do I introduce Gilbert or do I introduce the universe content? And this is where my editor will come in. So I'm just going to clean it up, make sure it's, as nice as I can get it. It doesn't have to be perfect. There's at least 2 more rounds of editing between the line edit after the developmental edit and then a final proofread copy edit. So there will be many eyes on this before I hit publish. But I'm pretty happy with, I think, the way I've condensed this explanation down, cutting out a lot of the nonsense. The reason there's a curse, we don't need to get into that yet. What I have to remember is that there's going to be a lot of candidates coming in as they find Christina's replacement. So there's going to need to be things to talk to them about, things to explain to them. So this is a good opportunity for easy and natural universe building, but I don't have to give every character everything all at once. And unfortunately, in earlier drafts of this book, because I was often dealing with both Joan and Anne as an active narrator, they had very different experiences as they went through things. There was a lot of repeats, so I have to be a little clear about that. So a couple things. I've been working on getting organized, and I went and got a happy planner. You can see pretty rainbow, and I'm still putting it together. But this is based on, and if you don't follow things, that's fine. So Sarah Cannon, Sarra, she does a channel called Heart Breathing, and she does a lot of organization, productivity stuff, and she creates a journal for every book she's working on, with characters and covers and details and notes. And so I'm starting to put that together just for New Devil. I've got what I'm going to do is break down the different acts so that people can so that I can go through and see what happens in every act. I've got it up on the whiteboard. It's hard for me to show you because it's on the other side of the screen. And I am on the laptop, not on the tablet, so I don't have a camera on the other side. But what I do have is pages for notes as I go, as I get feedback, as I think of things, they'll go in that journal. I do still have, though it's not up here right now, the big red journal, which is for the universe building. It's for all my notes about the universe, and I do transcribe things that need to be kept in both. It's one of the things I do when I'm watching Netflix, and it helps my brain turn things over to write them down by hand over and over again. So things tend to stick that way. So I'm very excited about that. I'm getting a cover. I will put stickers on it. The death postcard will go into it. I like to keep a visual of death where I can see it when I'm working. Right now, it's over at my desk, which is in that direction on my bulletin boards. But that helps me when I need to talk about him or describe him or think about how he would be moving. Like you can see in this scene, he drums his fingers on a table and they're very long, and he physically mirrors a lot of what the demons like Delta do and look like, because he wants to make sure he is separate from the humans, even though he doesn't see them all that often. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you for, well, since nobody joined me this week, and that's probably going to be it for a while. But if you're rewatching this on the replay, like, subscribe, get notifications, that fun YouTubey stuff. And if you want to chat more, feel free to find me on Facebook and DM me. It's SR Marks as a fantasy and horror writer page that I'm on. And I'm happy to talk about this and share more. And as I develop this, there will be inspiration content that I will share. But we have one more week of working on this one on the live streams, and then we're getting into the chicklet stuff, because chicklet, that's the other half of what I write. Have a great week and enjoy.